Welcome, this is the Radiance boss fight explained. This is the final boss of Hollow Knight's base game. The Radiance is a hidden boss only accessible after obtaining the Void Heart from the Abyss and using the Dream Nail on the Hollow Knight's head while Hornet's helping to hold him down. Note, you do actually have to hit him in the head, and if you fail to hit him in the head before Hornet's knocked over, you will not get another opportunity to start the Radiance's fight while fighting the Hollow Knight, so you'll have to reset the fight and start again. The charms I used for my winning fight with the Radiance were Carefree Melody, Long Nail, Fragile Strength, and Sharp Shadow. This is a fairly unforgiving fight. I've categorized the fight into 3 phases to simplify the explanation, where the moveset between phase 1 and 2 are identical, but the arena changes to force the fight to be done on floating platforms. All the Radiance's abilities deal 2 damage, excluding the floor spikes and falling off the side of the platform. The Radiance doesn't give much of a break between its next moves, so let's look at each one individually. The Radiance's Beam Burst shoots 8 beams centered from her face 3 consecutive times that never shoot in the same place twice, meaning that where a beam just shot is safe from the next beam. However, beams 1 and 3 could be fairly close together. There is an opportunity to heal when the 3rd beam starts to cast if you're quick enough and starting in a safe spot. The Radiance's Sword Burst is essentially the same as the Beam Burst, except there's 12 swords that shoot out, and they only shoot once from the Radiance. If you're in a safe place to start this move, you might be able to get some healing out again if started quick enough. The Radiance summons Sword Rain and Sword Walls for the player to deal with. The Radiance summons a barrage of swords which can come from the ceiling, the left, or the right side of the screen. In general, once the swords start coming from a direction, they don't switch sides during the mechanic without going to the ceiling first. In phase 1, this is made more difficult by the floor spikes reducing the footprint that you have to move around. What can make this particularly difficult is when the spikes cut off both the left and the right side of the floor. If Sharp Shadow is used and the sides of the arena are covered, I recommend sitting to one side of the arena to allow for your Shadewing Cloak dash to not drop you off on one of the sides of the arena and get hurt. As the fight progresses, phase 1 starts with a clean floor and introduces you to the Radiance's mechanics, but as you get hits in, she'll hit a threshold to start spawning in floor spikes, which have a second threshold to spawn them on the sides of the arena. The first threshold starts the floor spikes, cutting the arena in half by forcing you to stick to either the left or the right side of the arena. The second threshold cuts off both sides of the arena and forces you to stay in the middle. The Shadewing Cloak is going to be important here to help dodge mechanics, but as I mentioned before, be careful to not dash into the spikes or the swords. The Radiance's Beam Wall requires Shadewing Cloak dash to be available to get through the wall and not take damage. What makes this difficult is that by the time the attack gets to you, you could be dealing with beams, orbs, or swords as well. I recommend during this mechanic to move quickly to the opposite side of the mechanic so that you can deal with the Radiance's next ability. The homing orbs are identical to the Soul Sanctum's orbs. They tightly track you, so the best way to deal with these orbs are to make them run into the ground, or in phase 2 when the arena floor is covered and you're forced to platform, make them run into the platforms as best as you can. In phase 3, when the Radiance teleports away and the side platforms disappear, she's teleported clear into the sky to start her targeted beam mechanic. This is the only mechanic to deal with for the rest of the boss fight. My advice for this section is to always be on the move. If you stand still, the beam will go to where you are, so as long as you're moving, it likely won't hit you. If it's blocking your next platform, you should be able to double jump and be airborne long enough to land back down and bait the next beam elsewhere. As I went through phase 3, it seemed that the targeted beam got more accurate the higher I climbed, which allowed me to get healing off at the start of phase 3 when I was near the bottom of the platforms because the beam almost never actually targeted me directly. Keep dodging her beam while climbing the ascending platforms and eventually you'll reach the Radiance. At this point, she only needs one final hit and you'll start at the end sequence. Best of luck, I hope this helps, and congratulations on beating Hollow Knight.